President Biden at the White House declaring for the first time so far that he now does believe that Vladimir Putin will militarily invade Ukraine. The president just getting off the phone with our European allies who he says are united and determined and are preparing a massive amount of economic sanctions against the Russians, who he says is pushing out a massive amount of propaganda all over the place. And we don't know any more than that, is basically what he said. Greg Gutfeld, your reaction to what you heard? It sounds like it's happening.
I don't know what to believe, because they also had some interesting intel on Afghanistan. When he said it was hard to read Putin's mind, I get that. So why don't you just ask him? Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's always these psychological barriers in these things. And it was, well, why don't you just ask him what's on his mind and just sit there? This is what we did with North Korea. This is why Trump de-escalated a psychological threat by actually asking the dude, what's your problem? And he removed a psychological threat from the table. Look, America would love for you to join the rest of the world and not be some regressive tyrant. But we're not planning on blowing you up. So maybe you could point your missiles somewhere else. And he goes, and then that's the end of it. You have to remove the psychological barrier. It would be interesting. There's only one person you need to talk to.
Right.
It's Putin. Right. Just ask him. Let him talk. There's something else going on here that feels very, very manufactured. I don't know what it is, but it just seems to me that
what it is.
Go for it.
It's Jake Sullivan.
Yeah.
Jake Sullivan is the national security advisor. He's in deep yogurt in the Durham probe, and he's been the one saying we have so much intelligence. An invasion is imminent. Mm-hmm. They said that last Friday. Yeah. It's the next Friday. Here we are. I don't think Putin is going to invade, and I don't understand why we're running point when Germany is the one who's got the most invested. They've got the energy relationship with Russia. Russia needs their money. They need their markets. Therefore, with a new chancellor, he should make his mark on the rest of Europe and cool things down with Putin. He's got a much better shot than the dum-dums in this administration who blew it in 2014, and they're going to blow it again. And I know that because Kamala Harris is the point person.
Yes.
She's going to be repetitive. She's going to say the same thing over and over again, betraying her lack of knowledge on the entire situation. She's just going to go, we stand together. We are standing together. Here we are together, standing. Mm-hmm. It's
don't forget the hashtag. There's got to be a hashtag.
Yes, there's always a hashtag with Kamala. But, you know, the amazing part of it is that he's convinced that Putin has made the decision to invade. But he says it's hard to read his mind. So what are you basing that on?
Yes.
OK, what are you basing it on? Did you talk to him? Or are you basing it on the fact that they've got the planes out, they've got the tanks that are, in position? They called the Russian Reserve, which apparently is only used when they're about to occupy. So Putin is playing this game, whatever it is, and he's got these nuclear drills that he's going to be doing these drills this weekend. Then you have to say, OK, are you basing it on that? Because if you are, it's just a game. Mm-hmm. And you don't know what Putin is doing. But I agree with you, Kennedy. I really believe that Jake Sullivan and Blinken, they're a bunch of doofuses. And then you put the queen at the top of that, Kamala Harris, who doesn't know anything. We're sending her over there to tell them that we stand with the Ukrainians. First of all, we can't fight with the Ukrainians because they're not a NATO country. What are we going to do? Shake their hands when they come back from war? What is this all about?
Well, Leslie, it looks like the intelligence community believes and has told the president that they're going in. And that intelligence is either right or that intelligence is either wrong. And we just don't know that. But you could tell by the president's somber tone, and this was pretty somber, that he thinks it's happening any day now. This was different than he usually is.
His tone was different, I agree, but the message is the same. And look, if it has a bill and it has webbed feet and it quacks, it's a duck. And when you look at over 10 years of what Vladimir Putin has done, first of all, Vladimir Putin has wanted Ukraine as bad as a teenage boy has wanted the centerfold and Playboy since before he was Vladimir Putin.
You're saying really badly.
And in addition, when you have 90,000 additional troops, you have 150,000 troops there right now, one. Two, you have these small cyber attacks, and that's how they start. And then they escalate. And then three, You have this propaganda. That's the MO for the invasion. That's what he did last time, and that's what he's done before. So why would he be doing anything differently now?
But why didn't Obama stop him in 2014 when they annexed Crimea and when they declared a war back then?
Well, you brought up a very good point, and you took one of my points. But
I did. I didn't know that.
One, Ukraine is not a NATO country, and two, this is one area where we have bipartisan support. Even though it's symbolic, the Senate has passed a resolution echoing the sentiments of the president, both Democrats and Republicans. We don't want military involvement now. We didn't want it when Barack Obama was president.
Yeah, but he actually annexed Crimea. I mean, that's pretty significant.
Yeah,
but
what are you going to do there, though? Let's get some reaction to Joe Biden's speech from Jennifer Griffin, who is live at the Pentagon. All right, Jennifer, you heard what he said. It looks like he thinks Putin's going in. What changed so significantly, do you think, in the last 24 hours?
Well, Jesse, I think, first of all, I need to level set with the conversation I've just been listening to. What we are witnessing right now is not something that just changed in the last 24 hours. If you go back to notes that I've been sending out for the last 2 weeks, this is something we've been watching in terms of you have commercial satellite imagery, you have the buildup of forces, the type of forces, the numbers of forces, things that we've been told in advance to look for in terms of some of the disinformation that is already starting to appear, the false flag operations in the Donbass region. All of that is ticking up. This is something that through a web of intelligence sources as well as surveillance imagery that you can see with your own eyes. This is something that has been expected. They have been watching it very closely, and they feel that they are now in the final hours and days in which there is still a small possibility to try to get Putin to accept the off-ramp of diplomacy. But as you heard from President Biden, and it is extremely significant, what he just said in terms of, from his point of view, Putin has already made a decision. That coincides with what I am hearing here at the Pentagon, from Western intelligence sources, from Western allies. This is a very different situation than I've heard comparisons to the Iraq War and WMD and, well, how do we know? We're seeing it with our own eyes. If you can't look at the kind of Iskander missile battalions that are now in Belarus, 30,000 Russian troops there, half of his Air Force has now been deployed toward Ukraine. I am told in just moments ago from a senior defense official that 40% of his 190,000 troops who are on the border with Ukraine are now in attack positions. That is something that we have been waiting for. They were in those barracks. They are now moving into assault positions. They could move in a matter of hours or days. And this is something that needs to be watched closely. This is not some backwater. This is Europe. This is one of the largest military actions being threatened to redraw the map of Europe since World War II. It's going to be bloody. We've heard estimates that 50,000 civilians will be killed. 1 to 5 million refugees will be sent on the road. The level of destruction and the bloodiness of this invasion, if it moves forward, and again, they are doing what they can to try and get Lavrov and Blinken to meet and to say that if there's an invasion before that meeting on Wednesday, that then those sanctions and everything else goes into place, and we're in a whole different world at that point. But right now, every American should be watching this and knowing that this is deadly serious. This is not some wag the dog situation. To even mention the Durham probe in the same sentence as what we know and what we can see with our own eyes in terms of the military buildup and knowing what Vladimir Putin is capable of. I served in Moscow from 1996 to 99. I watched as Vladimir Putin rose. I remember the apartment blocks that were blown up by his KGB, his FSB, as a pretext to go into Chechnya. Go look at those images of Chechnya and how carpet-bombed Chechnya was when the Russian military moves in. This is not a precision, small, pinpointed strike. This will be the full weight of the Russian military going into Ukraine if someone doesn't stop it in the coming days.
Jennifer Griffin, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You look like you wanted to say something.
Well, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, our electric grid in this country is balkanized. It's like a third world country. Even the military is connected to our electric grid. So we are very vulnerable to a cyber attack to the electric grid. It could throw us back, and I'm not being, dramatic here, but it could throw us back into the dark ages.
You mean candlelight dinners?
Yeah, candlelight dinners, but
Not romantic.
not romantic with no food. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if this invasion window is so obvious and we're right in the midst of it, why is the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, going to Munich this week?
And why is he the most relaxed leader in the face of an invasion? I've never seen a guy more relaxed.
That was my point, but thank you very much for finishing my sentence.
Somebody had to.
Yeah, thank you. Oh.
There has been a little contrast between the intensity on this side.
Look
of the
at Biden
Atlantic
versus Zelensky.
compared to Zelensky.
I don't know. This kind of swirling, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Forgive me.
50,000 refugees already. They got to count it.
I know. But we've been hearing this. And it's like, no. I mean, don't start giving us crap because we don't know what's true because we've been lied to.
Repeatedly.
Right. I think what people are seeing through the satellite images are that they have amassed a massive amount of soldiers and armaments right around that country. And, what happened in World War I, what happened in World War II, it's a bloody theater. United States usually has to come and bail those people out. We do have the strongest military in the world, and we're allied with all these NATO countries. The fear is getting sucked into this bloody theater and having it spiral. Price of gas goes to $4 here in the United States, and we get hit with cyber attacks.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of concern.
There's also some concern that this administration is, being trolled into a hot conflict with a nuclear power. It's not exciting. It's not a football game. We are two nuclear powers about to get into a fight with each other. And would Germany come over and have our back if Justin Trudeau and his handsome hair decided to launch an invasion into the United States? I don't think they would. So I go back to why are we the ones running point on this? And why are people so excited at this prospect? Look what happened in Afghanistan. I'm not just talking about the botched withdrawal and, to the point you made earlier, the bad intelligence on the withdrawal and how quickly that country would collapse. Why are we now trusting the exact same intelligence apparatus to give us information here when the president can't say it plainly? So, yes, I share a lot of distrust. We have been lied to repeatedly by the Department of Defense about Afghanistan for decades. Why would they all of a sudden come clean now when we also know the NSA and CIA are spying on Americans illegally?
So, to Kennedy's point about trusting the intelligence, they've seen, I guess, all of the satellite images show the encirclement of the country. So that's not in dispute. It's not something that's in the shadows. You can see clearly where they've surrounded the country. It's a matter of what the president can do diplomatically, because we're not going in to deter him militarily. We don't have an alliance with that country, and we don't want that country in NATO to begin with, right? We're not going to say that because you can't let the Russians tell us who we're going to be allies with 10 years, 15 years later. But it's pretty clear we don't want them in NATO, all right?
But that's
Biden didn't say that clearly enough. But Putin, I don't think even cares. He just wants the country.
Well, if Putin
that
says,
I would agree with.
If Putin says that that's one of a condition, then it's like, cool. I don't want California in the Warsaw Pact.
There may have been a smoother way for the president to diplomatically kind of give a little this to Ukraine.
What if this is a fact-finding mission? You prepare to invade just to see what the other side has.
Well, that's what I think, and that's what I thought was happening for the last 2 weeks. I think he was testing us to see how we were going to respond.
We might have a weapon that we don't even know we have.
Really?
Right?
And it's you.
It's me.
You are a secret weapon.
For it.
I don't.
Leslie, is there anything differently the president could have
where's
done
the
to avert
grassy
this
knoll
situation?
underneath the table? Okay, look. Vladimir Putin reminds me of the silverback gorillas that, do this, right? He's all about, sorry to the sound people there.
Yeah.
He's all about power. He's all about money. We need to take a deep breath. The Western world controls over 50% of the world's economy. China and Russia combined less than 20%. So when it comes to money, we're going to win. And that's why I think that we see confidence, not just in Biden, but in our allies like Germany and others. And in addition, we know we're not going to send in the military, right? We're not going to send in the military. And we have bipartisan support on not sending in the military. And we also have bipartisan support on the sanctions. So, you know, he's having his power grab, which is Ukraine, which he's always wanted. But what's going to happen after? And I do think that not just President Biden, but I do think along with our Western allies, he's going to be smacked so hard financially that he will regret this decision.
He knows that.
But then the question.
Do you think he can stomach the sanctions and say, I'd rather gobble up the country?
No, I don't think he can stomach the sanctions, and I was just going to agree. I don't know that he has the money to last there for more than a couple of weeks.
Did you agree with me?
I did. I did. In terms of Russia,
I agree.
Economically surviving and invading, and I mean, how does he pay for it?
Yeah.
Occupying.
This is like in
How does he
Blazing
pay for it?
Saddles when, you know, they created a fake town. They used all the wood they could possibly find to create exact replicas of themselves. And that is what Russia is doing with their military. They have every single thing they've got in
And they
one
threw it
place
out there.
to try and make it look they've got much more waiting in the wings. And that is a falsehood. To your point, their economy is in shambles.
It is in shambles.
People in that country are hurting. They don't want this. They can't afford
But
to
they
take care
have
of.
Eastern Ukraine. Why do they need all of Ukraine?
Well,
Someone explain that
They
to me.
need it as a buffer militarily, and they want to go and reclaim the old empire that they lost. That's what they
He
want.
can't afford
Look
to
at
Empires are
the
expensive.
British, the Romans. I mean, since the beginning of time, men have been wanting to get more and more territory.
Yeah, you know what? If there was a
Catherine
female
the
leader
Great.
of Russia, she never would have invaded.
So, Leslie,
right?
it's all about men, right? It's all about the guerrillas. Since the beginning of time, it's been men.
You know what? We're on the pink team over here.
Well, good thing we said
can keep the
Kamala
pink.
over there.
Can you name a woman?
Kamala's
Can
gonna
you name a
decide
woman that's had a power
Joe
grab?
Teams.
Catherine the Great. She was not
All
a
right, you did.
pacifist.
Boom.
That's right.
Wow, you just got Catherine the Great. I didn't
Yeah,
see that.
I did get Catherine.
Yeah.
the Great.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Great.
All
I'll
right.
give you
Well,
that.
I think just to recap, Americans are concerned about the rise in gas prices, and if there's a cyber war back and forth in response to the
problem.
sanctions, that could also hurt us too. Until then, we don't know what's going to happen.
Kamala is going to solve this.
But
Trust
Kamala
me.
is on the job.
Border czar.
Yeah,
We're gonna
she
keep-
got this.
She handled our border. She could definitely handle another country's border.
That's right. And she's always wanted to go to Europe.
Yeah, that's
what
right.
she told
Yes.
Lester Holt.
This is
All right, we're going to
Europe.
continue to follow the breaking news with Ukraine.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.